less stress, more time, more money. Welcome to the Cash Flow Contractor Deep Dive.
Martin, you there?
I'm here, Khalil. How are you, sir?
I'm good.
I can see you on this computer in front of me. We're not in
I'm
the
sure
same
you
room
can.
today.
I know you're there. You got to make the intro sound a little bit interesting at least, right?
Of course.
Um, how's your week going?
It is going better than I deserve. It's only Tuesday, so
It's a Dave
things,
Ramsey quote right
things.
there.
Oh, really? I
Yeah, he
didn't know
always
that.
says that. He has his radio show, people call
Yeah.
in, and every time he asks them, "How are you?" they say, "And how are you?" And he says, "Better than I deserve."
I guess that makes it a cliche, but it's freaking true, man. Life is really, really good. Even though a lot of things are really, really bad, there's a lot more really, really good. And really lucky to be here.
Absolutely. We very much are. Very much are. Um, well, I think this is a great topic today, and I
Yeah.
think that um, it probably is going to change the perspective of how a lot of the listeners think about competing.
Yep.
Um, and I think it's, in business, it feels like there's almost infinite ways to compete, probably. Um, but the reality is, I think we've done a good job of narrowing it down into three clear areas.
Right.
Um, and I think it's, similar with sports. You think about competition, you think about ways to compete, and NBA playoffs are going on right now. And I really think it's the same difference. There's multiple competitors out there, but there's really only a handful of types of players, and some are able to do all of it. But you've got these like assassins like James Harden who can basically just score
Well,
at
what made
will.
you think of him?
Well, the Oklahoma City Thunder are
Oh, that's
playing the
right.
Rockets right
Yeah, and
now.
it's 2-2. Who would have
It's
thought that
2-2.
about 4 days ago?
Yeah. But yeah, you've got like these people that are just like so good at the
Right.
skill of basketball. Then you've got these people that are just incredible athletes that you probably put them in any sport and they're going to excel.
Right.
And then you've got like some of these people like, Steph Curry or whoever it is that is really, not the most athletic, but can shoot better than anybody, and is just throwing up shots all the time. And there's probably some guys in between there, and there's a mix of everything. But yeah, I think that they're all just competing, and they're trying to follow through on like their strengths. And I think that's a big takeaway that we're going to have today. Is at the end of the day, you've got to be yourself,
Right.
and you've got to compete with your strengths, not with your weaknesses.
You not only got to be yourself, but you have to understand who yourself is,
Yeah, you got to
and
know
that's where,
yourself.
yeah, that's where a lot of people fall down. The It's funny how these topics go because these three things that we're going to talk about originated, at least in my mind, from a book a couple of guys, Michael Tracy and Fred Wiersma, wrote back in 1997. And it's a kind of an academic book, and you can tell by the names that they give the three ways to compete that it's an academic book, and it was written toward big companies, but applies to small companies as well. It applies to all of us as well. Hadn't really thought about it much, and I don't know, over the past 4 or 5 months, it's come up. And so I'm talking to all the business owners I talk to about it now, and it's just really resonating with them.
Yeah.
You can tell there are certain things you bring up, and it's kind of ho hum, and maybe they didn't get it, but they get this one. So I'm glad we're doing it. I think it's really, really
What are some of
important.
the situations that have brought this up?
Well, I have a client who called me about 6 months ago. He's been a client for quite a while, and he's really transformed his business and his life. He's doing really well, and um, he was really a master. He does superior work. He uses great materials. He knows precisely what his customers want, and he gives it to them. And when I say what they want, not only in the product and what he produces, he also understands their psyches. He knows what they care about. He understands that they like communication. They want to collaborate with him. They want to know what's going on. He knows what they're concerned about. and he always makes sure that that he does what he says he'll do, and he does it on time. So it's really, really important to him. And about 6 months ago, he called up, and I won't say he was in a panic, but he was definitely concerned because lowballers had been moving into his territory doing what, at least nominally in name, doing what he did. And they were doing it for about half price.
Mm.
And his question of me was, how am I supposed to compete with that? And I think you know what my answer was, right, Khalil?
You don't.
You don't. You don't
It's a
compete
different
with that.
game.
And so that's where these really recently sprang to mind, these three ways to compete. And when I laid them on him, it was just kind of like a light bulb went off or
Yeah.
went on, not off. And he said, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And he's had a lot of focus. It's only been 6 months, but you can tell in his demeanor and in who he's selling, what he's selling, that kind of clarity is really
Yeah.
making a difference in his life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm sure that you probably had to go through that's kind of, you talked about how that's why the 3 ways to compete kind of came up. And I think let's kind of give an overview of what this entire show is going to be about, and what the 3 ways are. So, what are the 3 ways? You've got these
Well,
three. What are they?
The 3 ways to compete in any market available to all of us are operational excellence, product leadership, and customer intimacy. And just
Those
in
are
the
the most academic
yeah,
terms you could ever come up
well,
with.
I said that the book was academic, right? I mean, I don't know it, but I think these are a couple of PhDs.
I think you lost everybody already.
Well,
Product leadership for a contractor.
let's go back up and say operational excellence means that you do
Okay.
things really well, you're efficient, and you could compete on price, okay, if you wanted to,
Okay,
because
who's
you
an
produce.
example? Like that's Walmart is competing on
Yeah,
price.
they're not contractors, but absolutely
Sure,
Walmart.
but just for
Yeah,
understanding the term.
the things about operational excellence. Well, let's go through the list and then talk to specifics on them.
Okay.
So that make sure that we don't miss all the specifics for each one. So we have operational excellence is one way. You're the low cost leader, or at least you could be the low price leader if you wanted to and
Yeah.
still make money. Product leadership means that you're innovative. It might mean that you have patents. It might mean that you have trademarks. It might be that you just package products in a way that other people don't. And
Hmm.
but you are constantly tinkering with your offering and you're innovating. So you have operational excellence, product innovation, product leadership, product innovation, and then you have customer intimacy. And my old time example of a customer intimacy is a maitre d' in a high dollar restaurant in a big city. You know,
Who?
a maitre d', the head waiter
The head
at
waiter.
a
I don't
white
know these terms.
tablecloth, crumb scraper kind of expensive wine glasses kind of
Okay.
restaurant
High
where
end waiter.
high end waiter, and they charge an awful lot, but they're almost, I mean, it's cliche to say it, but they're almost fawning over you. They know everything about you, know your kids' names, they know what your preferences
Gotcha.
are, and they treat you that way. And they charge a lot for it. But
It's kind of like my cashier at McDonald's.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just kidding.
Through that box, can I help you?
Well, I know their
Hello.
name. I'm there so often.
Oh, well,
It's like my high end waiter.
well, we're going to have to talk about that. There are
I'm
probably
just
some better
kidding.
options. I know you are. So, anyway, those are really the 3 ways you compete on cost, i.e., price. You compete on your offering, what it is that you do that maybe other people don't do,
Yeah.
or 3, you compete on your ability to understand your customers so well that they just want to do business with you and they'll pay for it.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think I know I get these. I'm sure for a lot of listeners though, I'm playing listener right now. Still don't get it. I think I get it, but it's not clear. So let's dive in deeper to the first one, operational excellence.
Okay.
When does this work best? When does operational excellence competing on price make sense?
Well, one thing for all of them is that you go with your natural tendencies, especially as
Hmm.
small businesses. Um, Operational excellence, if you like change, if you like constantly tinkering with your processes and your controls and your systems, if you're constantly tracking your numbers and you just really your natural tendency is to do things really, really well, that affords you the opportunity to be good at operational excellence. If that's not your natural tendency, it doesn't mean that you don't do it. We all want to be excellent in our operations, but it's easier. So the question is, when does it work best? It's easiest when that's your natural inclination. You have to know what your numbers are, the bookkeeping, things like that, so you can tell where you stand and how you get better. I do want to throw out that low cost, low price does not always mean excellent operations. And an example of that's the lowball guys that are competing with the client I talked about earlier. They're lowball not because they know their costs and control them. They're probably lowball because they don't have a clue what their costs are and don't have a clue whether or not they're making money. On the flip side of that is Apple computers. They have operational excellence. There's little doubt of that, but they don't give it away. They're not cheap,
they don't.
right?
Well,
So
they're also, I would say they're more product leadership.
yes, but they
also
really
do operational excellence. I think any company that size is doing operational excellence, honestly.
well to get to that. We could
$2 trillion valuation.
well. Any company that size is Apple because that's the only company that size. But bringing it back to our guys, I mean, being operationally excellent does not mean that you're the low price guy. And if you're the low cost guy, does not mean that you're operationally excellent.
Sure.
But the
usually I think it's the operational excellent people that can actually afford to be the low price guy if they choose to go that route, like Walmart or Amazon, because they can do things at scale. They can do things very, efficiently. So they can afford to do the lower price. And I think what I see with contractors, it's usually the guys that are just starting that are doing the low cost method and they don't have the operational excellence. And they are usually the ones that have problems that they're not even aware of. They're usually the ones that are stressed out, and they're usually the ones that don't last a long time.
Right. Well, the thing about operational excellence is it's kind of ironic, but to be the low cost leader is very expensive. And that's why I don't, we'll discuss it at the end, but I always want operational excellence. I always want efficiency, but I don't want to compete I don't want to translate low cost into low price, right? If we succeed at doing it, I want my clients and I want my contractors to keep it. Okay. The people who generally are low cost and translate that into low price are either very small companies in which the owner does a lot of the work him or herself and they don't charge enough for it, right?
Yeah.
Or they're the flip side of that you already brought up is Walmart, who spends millions of dollars to save pennies on billions of transactions. They have devices that monitor the tire pressure in their trucks within a half PSI or within a certain PSI range to save an average of a half a gallon per mile on their trucks. Well, if you're a small contractor and you have 2 pickup trucks, that's not really going to make a lot of difference, but it's still going to be very expensive to do it. So we all want to be as efficient as we can, but want to make sure, at least in my mind, that we're not giving it away. And
absolutely.
And if you want to concentrate on it to the point that you're going to compete on price, that's a tough place. That's a tough place for small contractors.
Yeah, I think if your strength is operational excellence, you should charge more for it, not charge less for it. As a small business,
right?
I think small business owners, this is probably the most difficult one. Smaller contractors, and I'm saying even teams of like 50 or less, in my opinion, just it's the most difficult because you're going to be stretched as a small business owner, and you're not going to have teams for single functions in your company usually. And that's what you would need to be operationally excellent. Now, you can still be operationally excellent. You would just have to charge a premium for it, rather than, be low cost.
Well, you can be operationally excellent by not doing stupid things. So maybe operationally good. maybe
Yeah.
you don't take it all the way to the nth degree, uh, but we all need to be good. I
Yeah.
just am opposed to giving it away. I don't want to
Hmm.
compete with Walmart. I don't want to compete with Home Depot. I don't want to compete with Amazon on because we've already lost because it's
Yeah.
so expensive to be really good.
Well, I'll tell you a couple things that I notice. You just mentioned all these big companies, Home Depot, Amazon, Walmart, Lowe's, whatever it is. I think the usually people that are trying to uh, go for that low price, low ball effect. Yeah, maybe it's a big investor that says, "Hey, we're going to, bring out the market," but typically it's going to be a small shop, small guy who is around Home Depot, around Lowe's, sees that they're always doing sales. He loves sales. And so he thinks, "Oh, all my customers are going to love sales. I should do it too. I'll win the job if I do that." And so that's kind of his method. But I think the other side of it is, and I actually just posted on LinkedIn about this, not knowing what they're worth. And
Oh,
what I mean by that is if you don't know what you're worth, you are going to try to earn approval and earn your worth by doing things for other people. So you think that,
for
man,
free.
there's no way that they're going to pay me this much money.
Yeah,
So you're going to try to go above and beyond, and when not in a good way, in a bad way, you're going to start adding things, throwing in things for free, doing things that you're not charging for,
right.
just so you can justify your worth for your customers.
That is great. We're spending a lot of time on this, but this is important because pricing issues are typically our own head trash
Absolutely.
within reason, but within a broad range. This happened to me last week in a conversation with a man. Uh, he had about $350,000 $400,000 worth of bids out, and he hadn't had anybody pull the trigger for 2 weeks. And when we were talking via Zoom, he said, "Well, I don't know." He said, "I think it's probably price." Well, we spent years getting this guy's prices up and margins up, really good margins, good prices, been doing well. But he had a bunch of quotes out and he wasn't getting any of them. And he said, "I really think it's probably price." And I just hold up the timeout sign. I go, "Wait a minute. Do you have any? Why are you saying that? Do you have any evidence?" He said, "Well, I don't know. But one guy said I was hiring this other guy." I said, "Well, let's hang on. I think this is your own head trash. Don't do it. Just hang in there. It's been working. Don't panic on 2 weeks." Last Saturday, from the date we're talking right now, he
Yeah.
texted me, he sold 4 jobs that morning. And I don't know the total, but it was about $135,000, $40,000 worth. And one of the people came in and said, "Hey, you're X thousand dollars higher. The materials are the same. Why is that?" And he said, "Because I have to charge you enough to take care of you." And they said, "Okay." And they signed up. So he was laughing. He said, "You were right. I stuck by my guns, went through that dip. We've all been there where you're not selling anything. You think the world's coming to an end." But he had the courage to hang in there. He didn't change his prices
Yeah.
and he got the bids. But he also got something else. If he had changed his prices last week, called people up and changed his prices, and
Yep.
they had bought on Saturday as they did anyway, he would now say, erroneously, "Hey, I lost those jobs because of price, so I'm going to have to start making pricing concessions." So it was really an important victory in 2 ways. He got the jobs, and he also did not
Yeah.
get a false lesson from that. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the other thing that he got, if he would have gone back to that old pricing and lowered the price, right?
right,
And he would have won the jobs. He would have taken on a lot of stress
right.
because he wouldn't be able to,
Didn't have the
he'd still be
margins.
worried about the money in the
Yeah,
bank.
yeah,
His margins would have sucked. He wouldn't be able to hire the people that he needs to
right.
down the road because he doesn't have the cash in the bank. All these different troubles would have come because he wouldn't have believed in himself, essentially. And I think that's probably this. I'm glad we're spending time on it because it's so important for any business owner, but especially contractors. You have to know your worth, or you are going to suffer. You are going to
And
be
you have to
stressed.
know your worth during those times when you didn't get the last 4 bids you put out.
Absolutely.
Uh,
It's okay.
yeah,
I mean, it's better not to have the job than to be stressed out
right.
and not have money and be spending all your time working on this and not with your family and not working on your business, just working in it. So yeah, know your worth, because it's not the one job that you price low that's going to do this to you,
Right.
but it's the series of jobs that you continue to do
Right.
where eventually you're burnt out and you're questioning why you even went into business in the first place.
Well, and this lead us into a lot of other podcasts, but it really does. It takes courage to do that. And I know that we've got listeners out there who right now are thinking, yeah, right. I'm getting blown out on this bid. I'm getting blown out on that bid. My prices are too high. I'm going to cut them
Yeah.
down. Well, there's a way around that. And we'll mention it a little bit today, a USP, but we have to give people reasons other than price to do business with us. So
Absolutely.
just kind of back to operational excellence, as the academics called it, means that you're super efficient, low cost producer, which negatively translates to compete on price.
Yep.
We want everybody to be operationally excellent and low cost. I personally don't like people to compete on price. That's the toughest swamp to wade. Somebody can always kick your tail, and especially the guys who have no clue what their costs are and are going to go broke. But in the meantime, they're damaging you.
Yeah. Well, let's go to the next strategy.
Okay.
The next, way that somebody can compete is product leadership, which doesn't mean anything. So what does it mean, Martin?
Well, it's innovation. I mean, you can think about it really innovative, like you developed the iPhone or a new app or something like that. Or you can find new machines that enable you to do things that customers want that you couldn't do before. But basically, it's innovation in the way that you do business and what you offer your market. And I think in contracting, I mean, there's new materials, there are new methods for building, there are new architecture things, new design, architecture and design. But innovation for most of us is really hard. If doesn't mean that we don't pursue new things. We don't mean that we're not interested in new things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really hard to be profound all the time, and it's really hard to carve out and maintain an innovative leadership position, because it not only has to be cool and new to you, it has to matter to your customers. And so it's tough. And there are companies who do that. It's not something that I recommend my clients when they walk in, that I say, hey, why don't you start competing on innovation, unless they're already innovative. And we do have manufacturers and contractors who are innovative. And it's another one of those things that it's almost a natural bent. There are people who are creative, and there are people like me who are not creative.
Yeah.
And if you told me go create something, I mean, I have a hard enough time coming up with our 4 things for the Mount Rushmore, right? So everybody's creative in certain ways, but if you want to compete on that and you're going to rely on that, I consider that to be the toughest strategy. It's just because it's hard to do.
Yeah, but I think it doesn't have to. I want to be careful with the term innovation. I think for my team, whenever we do employee reviews, one of the things I rate them on is innovation. And we don't create software. We don't create, new technology. But just how are you improving is basically what I'm trying to think of. How are you doing something different that's improving maybe our processes, or maybe you found a different way for us to make content, or whatever it is. And so I think with contracting, it doesn't have to be something crazy. It doesn't have to be like a new, completely new material that you're using or something like that. I really think you can find little ways of innovating that's doing it different from the people, at least in your local area.
Right.
And so maybe that's just, understanding what's happening in the biggest markets and what the trends are, understanding what's happening on design, and not from you're actually going to go and, create something from scratch, but you're going to have something, what I like to call a swipe file, which is things that you swipe from other people. Right. And that's a shout out to Dave Gerhardt. He had a podcast called The Swipe File for Marketing. But what is your swipe file? Are you getting onto Pinterest, for example, and looking at what the trends are? Are you following any designers that are, designing new things? Are you following, people on YouTube or Hows that are posting things that you can also go and do? Because it's likely that, in bigger markets, they're going to be a new trend on what kind of, countertop surface they're using, or what kind of, sinks they're going to use, or faucets. You know, I'm trying to think of different things that might apply.
Well,
Different types of,
swimming pool innovation is one that popped in my mind real quickly. They
yeah,
go to
absolutely.
these
There's
conferences and
always
there are just
different.
so many new things going on.
Yeah, there's always something new that's happening. And so if you can just pay attention to those things and understand what's happening in your area and try to implement new things, that's how you can have some product leadership here. And that's where what you're charging a premium for is because you're always aware of what's trending, always aware of what's new.
Right.
And maybe you're someone that already does that naturally. That's probably what's going to fit you best. Um, and if you don't think about this stuff a lot, I don't recommend trying to become the best at that in your area. Um, Maybe you hire someone who's really good at it, but it's definitely, you have to have an eye for it. It's definitely more of a creative side and a visionary side than it is someone who's just logistical.
Right. Well, and that will remind people that we want to emphasize one, be at least good at the other two. So if you choose customer intimacy, which is up next, doesn't mean that you abandon innovation, and it doesn't mean that you
Right.
abandon trying to be efficient. It just is the one that you concentrate on.
Absolutely. And usually, the people that are in the product leaders, the people that are most innovative, always doing new things, they're not able to be as operationally excellent, because for operational excellence you have to have like systems, you've got to have really efficient processes, and you've got to be able to do a lot of it at scale. And that's one thing that doesn't scale well, is innovation up front. There's a
Right.
reason why, you know it takes forever to release new iPhones and to release software, and they do beta testing and all these different things. They can't just send it out the next day after it's made. Um, so just understand that's why these are different strategies, because it's hard to do both at the same time. So, yeah, let's talk about the next one: customer intimacy.
Customer intimacy. That's kind of almost scandalous the way it sounds, right? But it means you understand your customers so well that you can give them what they want. The thing I like about customer intimacy is it's critically important at all times in all businesses, I think, to understand your customers. Much of what we talk about, especially for small businesses, is um, we have to find ways that we can compete. We're not going to be the low cost producer
Yeah.
going against Walmart. Period. End of discussion. Now,
Hmm.
not me limiting myself or limiting you, but I just think that's not the way to bet. So
Right.
we're not going to be coming out with a new iPhone, probably. So one thing that is available to all of us is to understand our customers really well, to have a really strong USP, a unique selling proposition, a really good understanding of why our customers buy from us other than price. We have a real good understanding, this is your area, of who our customer is, because different customers want different things. So we have to know who we're talking to. And so it it extends beyond just the product that you deliver. It's like the story that I was telling at the beginning. It's understanding uh, communication is huge with customers and contracting. I just tell our listeners, if you're having difficulty out there, if you just communicate with every prospect in every current job you have, customers, every Friday afternoon, you send them a text or an email that says, we're not coming next week as promised because of rain, or
Yeah.
because we got backed up, or because a brick wall fell down, or whatever it is. You don't really want to tell them that because that's bad news, but they are going to ultimately appreciate that. And if you
Absolutely.
become the known as the communication guys that keep your customers in the loop and they always know what's going on, your
Hmm.
business will grow from just that. Uh, because I've just seen
Absolutely.
it so much that customers value that. So uh, showing people respect, collaborating with them, uh, doing things when you said you would, and if you can't, communicating that. Um, those things people really value. One of the hard things is I have clients who actually don't like their customers, and maybe some people listening. That's kind of tough because they're really important. They're not always right, but they're always important. And so sometimes there might be some people who don't compete on customer intimacy of knowing your customer, but it's worth it to make a supreme effort in that regard. Um, and so that's the one that I like the most. It's available to most of us,
Right.
or it's available to all of us. It's something all of us can do. It's something that gives a small guy a competitive advantage against the huge guys because
Right.
Walmart in Little Rock or Bentonville does not understand your clients as well as you do if you take
Nope.
the time to understand them. So it's kind of a natural competitive advantage against big guys. And it's also a competitive advantage against a lot of your competitors because a lot of them duck and run. They don't want to be, I don't want to say they're cheats, but they don't want to be honest. They say, well, I'll be there Friday when they know full well that's not going to
Mhm.
happen, but it gets them off the case. So customer intimacy is mine of choice. And if you can be at least good as a product leadership and good in your operational excellence, your efficiency, I think that's a sweet spot for most of us in small business.
Oh, absolutely. I think for most people, this is the most accessible, like you said, and it makes sense because a lot of their business is coming from word of mouth referrals, and in order to get referrals, you have to be good with your clients and your customers
Right.
so that they give you referrals. And you're usually, if you're just starting, and even after you've started, but when you're starting, you're reaching into your network for business, and so you know them already well. It's why customers choose to shop locally because they feel like there's a personal connection there. That's why
Right.
local, sounds so good to customers. It's why we go to the same local restaurant each week or each month, whatever it is. It's because we feel known. It feels special and authentic. So absolutely, I think this is the easiest one to compete on, and it's something that
I'm going to disagree with you just a little bit. It's not the easiest one necessarily, but it's the one that's
sure
available to us. Yeah, it's not necessarily
it's
easy.
not
And I know
necessarily
you didn't mean it
easy.
that way,
Yeah, I think
but
it's
it's the one.
easier than really being operationally
Yeah,
excellent. Maybe it's the least expensive. Maybe that's what I'm
yeah,
trying to say.
yeah. It was the most plausible for us. Um, I didn't. I got your point. I just wanted to make
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, for sure.
it's not necessarily cheap in
Yeah.
terms of time or money because
Hmm.
the to do the communication thing takes a lot of time, a lot of discipline,
Right.
a lot of effort.
And I think this is where it actually gets really hard for contractors because they they choose to compete on customer intimacy, on knowing their customers, on being there for them, on serving them well. And because they develop that relationship with them, a lot of times they feel like they can't price themselves highly, and because they can't do that to that person, they feel like they're maybe cheating them or whatever it is. And you have to get that out of your head because otherwise you're not going to be able to serve them well whenever you've got an influx of customers that aren't paying you enough and you don't have enough time, enough staff to be able to serve them. I mean, you've got to charge them what it's worth to, use you and know you and get that
Right,
service. It's worth every penny to them, and you have to get out of your head that it's not, that you're cheating them.
right. Well, you have to
Um,
give them something for it, and that's that intimacy. I for using the communication. Um, I ask people that have a contractor. There are lots of different kind of contractor, but let's say residential contractors. When I have neighbors or friends, I said, "How did you choose the contractor?" Almost every time, the answer comes back, "He's the only one who called me back." Right.
yeah.
And every contractor I talk to, I mention this idea of weekly communication with everybody with whom you're doing business. At
Hmm.
least update them, let them know what's going on. Every contractor says, "Oh, hell yeah, that would be the best thing in the world." And very few of them do it. And it's not because they don't see the value, it's because it's hard. And the
It's
thing
very
about
difficult.
it's hard to do that if you commit to communicate every Friday or every Thursday or whatever it is. It's hard to do. And that is the gold or the silver lining. Because it's hard to do, people don't do it. And that's why it's available to you. If you
Yeah.
want to stand out, communicate. And that's just one of the strategies of
Mhm.
customer intimacy, but it's hard to do.
Well, and that's why I think it's so important if you're really small, 10 or less employees or something like that. I think one of your best hires can be an office person who makes sure that every
Do that
email is
for you.
responded to,
Yeah.
every phone call is answered, and they can keep every customer in the loop and give that personal touch.
Yep.
As you get bigger, though, it can't just be that one person, and you can't just hire 5 office people to take care of it necessarily, because there's too many different touch points with all these different customers you have. It has to become a part of your culture. You've got to implement it at the culture level so that every single person
Right.
understands that communication is key. And you, as the business owner, as the president, CEO, founder, whatever you want to call it, you've got to model it by example. Something that I'm working on, I'm not a contractor, but something that I'm working on for our culture is I really want us to be content creators. And that's something that we've struggled with as a team culturally. We've got a content team, but we struggle to create content for ourselves. That's what we're doing with this podcast. So I'm trying to lead by example by investing in this podcast, creating content. But I've just started this week. We use a tool called Slack for workplace communication. It's essentially like um, you know a messaging tool like iMessage or Facebook Messenger, but for our team internally. And I'm trying to post essentially like a writing prompt every day. Yesterday I said, hey, what was the best thing that happened this weekend for you? Today I said, hey, what's one skill that you learned this month or in the past 3 months that you've developed, and how did you develop it? And then I respond to it. And if I can get our team thinking about things like that, then that allows us to then think in terms of creating content, because we're doing it inside of our workplace communication. Maybe that will bleed into the social aspect. And then if I've started posting regularly onto social media to create content, and I think my team's going to see that. So my biggest thing is whatever area you choose here, especially the customer intimacy side, you as the owner of your business, as the leader in your business, have to be an example. If you don't do it, there's no way. You have a very small chance that your team's going to follow suit.
Right. Yeah, and that kind of brings back what we said initially of the three: operational excellence, product leadership, and customer intimacy. Deciding which one, I always just generally in favor of the customer intimacy. Know your customer, know what they want.
Yeah.
But if you kind of go with your natural bent, I
Mm-hmm.
know people who efficiency is more important to them than sales. It's just kind of like that's their thing. You and I
Yeah.
both know a guy like that.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
Product leadership, there are people who are always, as soon as they get something figured out, they throw it over their shoulder and move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And your natural tendency, maybe they got their patent attorney on speed dial, and maybe of those first two types, they don't even like their customers. I mentioned I have clients whom I know don't like their customers. Now they fake it, and I think they like them a little more than they
Yeah.
let on when they're talking to me, because they're always kind of groaning about it, and they're successful, so they've got to at least. But pandering to customers, and pandering's a bad word, but trying to figure out exactly what customers want and giving it to them, they kind of almost don't even care about that. Being
Right.
efficient or making new products is more. So it's really hard to concentrate on something that isn't in your natural tendency. I think most of us have all three of those in us.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that's most available, again, is customer intimacy. Understand your customer, come up with a USP, an idea other than price that your customers want,
Yeah.
and then run your company that way.
Yeah. I think we should come up with some different names for these, Martin. I think that no one's going to remember these academic words. So what's another name for operational excellence?
Okay. You're competing on price.
Compete on price,
Yeah.
product leadership,
Yeah. Compete on innovation.
compete on innovation. What's another way of saying that? I don't know that there is.
Innovators.
Compete on innovation, and then customer industry, compete on communication, compete on
Yeah.
relationship.
Relationships. Yeah.
Yeah, compete on relationship. Um, Good. Okay. That's what we've got. So we've got compete on price, compete on innovation, compete on relationship.
Right.
Um, Even more simpler, price, innovation, relationship.
There you go.
Those are the three ways. And you've got to be good at all three and stick to your guns. Like Martin said, choose your strength, stick to it, be good at all of them and be excellent at one of them. But I'll also say that it's really hard to change from one strategy to another one if you get really big. Like if you've been trying to compete on price for ages and you've got all this work and you're short staffed and don't have time and don't have money, it's going to be really hard to all of a sudden be competing on relationship because you don't have the manpower, you don't have the time to be able to execute on it. So if you are a smaller contractor, figure this out sooner than later. It's kind of like we talked about with Sergio in our interview with him. More money, more problems. Like your problems get bigger as you get bigger. So,
Right.
um, well, I think it's time for us to go on to our Mount Rushmore segment. But I feel like we should actually share the one thing before we jump into that. So, like the one thing that something you can actually go do. Uh, we've got a workbook in the show notes for the unique selling proposition workbook. We've referenced it several times already. Martin, you want to give us a definition of a USP?
Yeah. Unique selling proposition means reasons other than price people will buy from you. And the benefit of working through the workbook that's in the show notes, the USP workbook, is that it helps you understand what maybe is already going on in your business. That you understand people are buying because they like and trust you, not because you're the low ball leader. But working through that and coming up with your own unique selling proposition is not exactly and perfectly this and synonymous with the three areas of business, or three areas of competition, but it points you in the right direction. It's a great exercise and it's worthwhile doing.
Good. Yeah. And I think that's a great starting point because it just does make you focus on who your customer is and what you are to them.
Right.
It really just makes you define that and give you a clear roadmap of, hey, this is the strategy we're going
Right.
forward with to beat our competition. Okay, so now that we know what a USP is, it is time for our Mount Rushmore segment. Of course. So we're doing the best USPs. I'm actually excited about this one. I think this is one of our better Mount Rushmores. What are the? Let's go one for one here. So you go
Okay.
one, I'll go one.
Well,
Best USPs you know.
my favorite one, stopped and took a picture, is a convenience store located at the intersection of Highway 281 and Interstate 80 in Nebraska. And these guys have a giant sign.
Where is that? That's the middle of nowhere, right?
Middle of nowhere. Some people in Nebraska would object to that, but I think most would agree. Yeah, especially in January. But anyway, these guys have a giant sign that you can see from the interstate and Highway 281, and it says "Best Looking Cashiers." And yet, I pulled off and went in, and no, it's a couple of guys. I won't go any further than that. But they got me in the damn store, right? So anyway,
Yeah, you were hoping to get something more than a couple of guys, weren't you?
well, figuratively speaking.
I bet it's just. I mean, you never see a sign like that.
No,
I think that's what's great about that one is it's kind of like, wait, what? Best looking
somebody
cashiers?
thought of that, got approved of it, had a sign company make it. It's a injected molding sign, and made it and put it up there. But it's working because, well, I don't know if any listeners are going to stop by, but we're talking about it.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's great is no one else is saying that.
Yeah.
You can claim it, and if someone else tries to copy it,
Yeah.
it's obvious. Well,
Yeah.
maybe not for them because they're not national. You might be able to be in like North Carolina and say
Nobody
that.
ever see it.
No one ever know, but I hope they trademark that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to
Yours,
go ahead
Dave.
and go my first one with Carl's Jr. I don't know if everybody remembers the $6 burger from Carl's Jr., but I thought that was a great USP of just, you've got McDonald's, you've got Burger King, and they're selling Big Macs and Whoppers. Hey, we're coming out with the $6 burger just to show, hey, it's, what is the phrase there? It reassuringly expensive.
Oh, I was just going to use that for my USP, man. That is Stella. What is it? Stella Artois, the beer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
reassuringly expensive.
Yeah.
It's more expensive, but you're like, I'm paying for quality. It's going to be better. It's Angus beef, whatever. I think it's a really great way of people being like, oh wow, like it's a $6 burger.
Right.
So, anyways, I thought that was a good one from Carl's Jr. What's your next one?
Okay. FedEx. When it absolutely positively has to be there overnight. No mention of price, right?
Oh,
And we all take
never.
that for granted right now. But when they started saying that, I guess probably in the 80s, maybe late 70s, I remember FedEx came out and they said, when it absolutely positively has to be there overnight. I was staggered. I thought, how in the hell are they going to do that? Well, they did it so well that we don't even think about it anymore. As a matter of fact, we're usually upset if our Amazon order doesn't come the next day. And now they're coming the same day. So, but anyway, that was a USP. They're going to compete on customer intimacy, which was the idea that that signed contract from Omaha, Nebraska, had to be in New York City by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just kind of figured it was going to cost something.
Oh, of course. Of course. Okay, my next one is 3-day kitchens. 3-day kitchen and bath, I think is what it's called. But theirs is something along the lines of floor to ceiling renovation, but the big catch is in 3 days or less guaranteed. And that's in what's the Michael Gerber book?
The E-Myth.
E-Myth for
Well,
contractors.
it's actually E-Myth Contractors, yeah.
Yeah, the contractor edition. Great book. We'll put that in the show notes too. But yeah, if you get a kitchen, like you're going to remodel your kitchen, you use 3-day kitchen and bath, and they don't finish the job in 3 days or less, you get it for free. And so that
Yeah, I
is
wonder how many
absolutely
people,
crazy in my mind, but they have just done operational excellence and they've charged a premium for it.
right. They're not, but customer intimacy, because they know that kitchen
Sure.
remodels drag out for years sometimes and
Mhm.
in and out before the wedding in May. And I ask people, what do you suppose? That's high price, middle price, low? Oh, that's got to be outrageously expensive.
And it is, right?
Yeah. But if you want it, that's what you pay for.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, what's your next
For
one?
me, Southwest Airlines, I think they're all well known for their culture, which is hugely important. It's customer intimacy of a certain, they know the type of person, but they also are operationally excellent. Their premise was that they wanted to compete with driving. And that was, can't remember his name, the founder. Anyway, that was their original premise, that we're going to compete with
Mhm.
driving, but we're going to do it in such a way. So they were really, really good at least those two. They're pretty
Yeah.
good on the innovation side too, just with a lot of their clever slogans and things like that
Yeah.
that aren't technology, but really matter, like your bags fly free and things
Yep.
like that. They charge for the bags in their ticket, but then they tell you they're free. And so you're thinking they're good guys. So anyway, Southwest Airlines really got it.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to say with that too. I mean, people are if you're trying to go for that low cost method and you keep on like throwing in free stuff or discounting things, like you can still get away with that, do an example of bags fly free, but just add it into the cost, maybe it's, $100 gift card for every referral. You just build it into the quote.
Right.
You know what I mean? So anyways, that's a good one. I like Southwest. My third one's Starbucks. The third place and that's almost a vision, but they really came up with, hey, we are the third place. And what that means is you spend most of your time at work and most of your time at home. And so they wanted to be that third place that you go to, where you spend time. And they honestly, this is a customer intimacy. They recognize that people wanted a place to hang out other than like the bar, um, and where they can go and read the newspaper or have coffee with somebody. And I think at the same time, it was innovation. They completely changed culture in America. They took an Italian, concept of spending time at the cafe in the afternoon. And they brought it to America, and now there's coffee shops all over the place because of that. And I think it's a great USP. And people, I mean, I personally don't really like Starbucks coffee. I'm kind of a coffee snob, but I will still go to Starbucks to spend time and grab coffee with somebody to maybe work from there. And they know that, that's their USP. They've got the fastest Wi-Fi. They've got, lots of seating available with comfortable chairs. They want you to spend time there. You can read the newspaper for free if you don't walk away with it, things like that.
And we'll do that again when the COVID thing is over with.
Yeah.
Actually, they already are opening up, at least around here.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, what's your last one?
Enterprise rental cars. We will pick you up. Now, that's a great USP because anybody else could do it, but they claimed it. It's a preemptive USP because they just can't go out there and say, well, they could, but we'll pick you up too. But it's a customer intimacy approach to the marketplace of understanding what people want. They understood that people are having a hassle getting to get their car and take it back. Well, we'll come get you and take care of it for you.
Which honestly, I've used Enterprise a few times. I've never done that. Have you ever had them pick you up?
No.
Like
I know, but
I don't even know if they still do it.
Oh yeah, they do. Well, no, I don't know if they do. But if you ask anybody, do it today. Somebody in line at Starbucks would say, "What's Enterprise's deal?" Because they don't know. Yeah, slogan. They won't say USP. And we'll pick you up. Everybody knows it.
Everybody knows it. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, very interesting. And I, even if I don't use that service of them picking me up whenever I rent a car, I still get the sentiment that they care.
Yeah, that they would.
They would go out of their way to help me.
Right.
And so even then, I'm going to use them because of that sentiment. But I knew you were going to go with a enterprise car rental price, and so I actually went with a competitor, National Rent-A-Car, or National Car Rental, and their USP is car rental at the speed of business. And the difference with them is, you get to the airport and you're renting a car. The keys are already in the ignition. You don't say hi to a soul. You go to your car. You get an email with your lot space number. You go to it. You get in the car and you leave. And that's a big deal because especially business travelers who are frequently renting cars, they don't want to sit in the line waiting to talk to somebody and give them all their information and all these different things. Get in the car and go. And
that's different. That shows an understanding of their target market because in that case, they're targeting business travelers as opposed to mom and dad and 3 kids and 15 suitcases.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, they've got multiple of these strategies. Yeah, they're doing the customer. They know their audience. But at the same time, it's operational excellence. Like you've got to have a lot in place to be able to just leave the keys in the car.
Right.
And have people drive off and know where they are and who they are and all those things. So, those are those 8 USPs right there to get you thinking. And there's several things you can do as a contractor, especially if you're targeting that relationship aspect, customer intimacy, if you will, competing on relationship. I think some great things that you can talk about. I know there's an electrician, I believe, who has happiest technicians. And whenever they show up to a house, they're happy and they're always trying to do a favor for somebody picking up. I think I've mentioned this before in one of the episodes, but they're always doing something to help, even if it's not anything related to an electrician, taking out the trash, rolling up the trash bin, screwing in a new light bulb, picking up leaves. I don't know. So that's one way to do it where you're building that relationship with people. There's a lot of different ways you can come up with things, and it doesn't have to be something that is super clever, like best looking cashiers. Yeah, there's bonus points for that, but don't feel like you've got to figure out something that's going to rock the world.
Right.
So, okay. We are on to our second to last segment here, quote of the day, which gets a boom. What's our quote, Martin?
Well, it's you can't be all things to all people. Do what you were made to do by Robert Kiyosaki. And that's not a thrilling quote, but it's a true quote. You can't be all things to all people. If you're after the cheap guys and you're after the guys who want quality and excellence, and you're after the innovators who want the newest and most modern, you can't be all three of those things all the time. You have to choose and dominate in one. Be good at the others, but choose one.
Okay. Good stuff. I like it. Great. What's the name? Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Rich, I'm not sure if that came from that book. He's got several, but Rich Dad,
he's the
Poor
author
Dad.
of it.
Yeah, he's the author.
Okay. Well, we're about to talk to Ethan, but you had mentioned at the beginning, that one of your clients had called because there was a lowball competitor coming in and slashing prices in half, and he didn't know how he was going to compete. And you told him you don't.
Right.
What ended up happening there?
Well, it was really fun because it was kind of like a light bulb went off. He just kind of, yeah. And so he quit competing on price. He actually reached the point, he gathered the courage that people who called up, some industrial type clients who called up and said, well, they're lower. And he said, well, I have to send you their way because I just can't do it. Some of them are coming back anyway. But the other benefit of him choosing is that he pays attention now, and he's learning more and more and more what people want, and he's getting better and better and better at that. And he tell people his price range on the phone, and when he tells them the low end of his price range is double what these other guys are, and you'll hear, well, these guys will do it for that. And he says, well, I understand that. We're different, but please use them but we're always here. He never burns bridges because sometimes they come back. But it's made all the difference, and he's not stressing over it all the time because I'm just not doing that anymore. I'm not trying to figure out how to do all this top quality work with all this customer service and charge half. He's just not doing it. So it's been a great success and a stress reliever.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's just so much more confidence from customers too whenever you stick to your guns like that. They know that they're going to be taken care of.
And they view you as a professional. It's that reassuringly expensive that you brought up. People don't expect to get top quality people, service, products, jobs, and not pay for it. Sometimes some people want that, but they're not going to get it.
All right. Ethan's insights. We ready, Ethan?
Yes, sir. Can you guys hear me?
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you. All right. Let's get our music going. We got a minute on the clock. Give us your recap. Go for it.
All right. So today we talked about the 3 ways to compete. The moral of the story was about people undercutting your prices. Don't compete with them. Know your worth and stick with it. We then talked about operational excellence. Low cost, low price does not always mean you have operational excellence. You want to be efficient, but you don't want to give it away. Know your worth and stick with it, like I said at the beginning, or you will suffer. Product leadership or innovation. It can't just matter to you. It has to matter to your customers. How are you going to do something different that can benefit your business is what you should ask yourself. Create a slide file. Go find ideas for trends in bigger markets and apply them into your business. Then we talked about customer intimacy. You want to understand your customers so well that you give them exactly what they want. Have a unique selling point and know how your customer feels about it and why they want it. Know who your customers are and why they want your product. And customer intimacy is one of the 3 that is accessible to all of us. So you can go and apply it in your own business. The cheapest, maybe not the cheapest, but you can apply it to your business. And it doesn't just happen. You have to, as you grow, you have to make it a part of your company culture. customer intimacy, like Chick-fil-A, for instance. And the last point, I'd say you don't have to be excellent at all three, but be excellent at one and good at the other two.
All right.
Good.
Good
You
stuff.
pay attention,
A little
don't
longer
you?
than a minute,
Yeah.
but I think a good little recap.
He's got the coolest music, though.
He does. Well, right at an hour.
Excellent.
3 ways to compete. If you have any questions, use the show notes to get in contact with us. Would love to chat with you about your USP. Would love to chat with you about what strategy might work best for you and how you can implement that strategy better into your business. So anything else you got for us, Martin?
Just have courage and confidence, guys. It works. It works every time. When the courage is finally there and you decide to take a strategy, it works.
Yeah. Be focused, be committed, believe in yourself, know what you're worth, and go out there and compete. Appreciate it. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Ethan.
See you next time.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks for listening to The Cash Flow Contractor. Check out our website in the show notes or visit thecashflowcontractor.com.
What's up, cash flow contractors? Khalil here. Thank you so much for getting to the end of this episode. It means the world to us that you're listening. I've got a favor to ask. So we are looking for contractors who would like to have a free consult with myself and with Martin for about 30 minutes to an hour. We'll basically just ask you questions about your business, about what it's like for you to work as a contractor, and then we will answer any of your questions specific to your business. Then we'll make that a live episode for other contractors to learn from, to engage with. And we think it's a great way for people to really see clear, specific answers to problems that contractors have. So if that interests you at all, we're not going to share any of your information. You don't even need to say your name on the episode, but I think we want to get some more of these episodes out there. And if you're willing to do that, we've got a link in the show notes that allows you to just submit a form for a consult. Then we'll schedule it with you and record it, and we'll put you live on the podcast. So if that interests you, please check it out in the show notes. If not, no worries. Or if you know someone else that you think would be interested in it, send it to them. That'd be great. But appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, we hope that you're finding less stress, more time, and more money. Thanks.